Britannia and Brexit are winning again. The European Union carry on with their decline, and the liberal pro-EU mainstream media continue to take the side of Brussels. Yes, good and happy news about Brexit and Brexit Britain. Something that you would not hear in the mainstream media. Now, there are so many things that we could criticize this government on when it comes to Brexit management. And as we already said, Northern Ireland is one issue. We still have a problem with the fisheries, but that's getting better, close to the end of the transition period for that. We still have an issue with thousands of EU laws that still exist in this country. But Brexit Britain itself and the economy and businesses and individuals continue to work hard to make this country a better place, as well as a handful of sound conservative politicians that we still have in place, a little bit left, who are doing a good job, including Kemi Badenoch. And at the time, International Trade Secretary Liz Truss also did a good job with the trade deals. So what's going on in this video? Well, Britain is beating the European Union. UK's free trade agreements now outnumber the European Union's. Do you remember during the EU referendum, one of the arguments that the Remainers had against Brexit and Brexiteers was that if you leave the EU, not only you will be isolated, you will lose your free trade deal with the EU, and also no country and no company would want to deal with Britain. You will be on your own, isolated, little Britain. Remember that? Well, not only we now have a trade agreement with the EU itself, not only we also copied and pasted the existing deals that we had under the EU with countries that the EU already negotiated. The difference was that the European Union take about 8-9 years to negotiate trade deals, and it's a protectionist deal. The UK have been negotiating deals left, right and centre, and it took them a few months. We've also now gone out there and signed new deals that the even European Union doesn't have. This is the fascinating part about Brexit and global Britain that we have to be proud of. Now, number one, this is actually thanks to the research that came out, which is quite important, by the way, to talk about what's been going on. First things first, the facts4eu.org have done a great job talking about this, Brexit Facts. So, who is Brexit Britain currently doing business with around the world? Now, facts4eu.org has analysed the latest trade figures by country from the Office for National Statistics. The UK traded with 213 countries and islands in the year to September 2022. So that is absolutely brilliant. British companies are doing business all over the world, and they're doing it with the interest of Britain and British consumers and British businesses. Instead of, compared to the past, especially when we used to be in a single market, so-called trade and globalism was actually harming us. It was harming our consumers, it was harming our businesses and our industries. But thanks to people like Kemi Badenoch, any new agreement we've had has actually been in the interest of British businesses. Instead of harming our industries, we're actually helping us to sell to the world instead of relying on the world to buy from them. Something that Donald Trump also did in America with NAFTA, for example, the trade zone with Canada and Mexico. This is exactly how you should do trade agreements. So, the UK's free trade agreements now outnumber the EU's. So, Britain is now has trade deals in force with 94 countries around the world, including the 27 nations that are members of the EU. Now, the European Union has only 79, and many of these are looser arrangements described as stabilization and association agreements, or some sort of vague category. It's not really a trade deal anyway. But we've gone out there, we've been negotiating quick trade deals, proper comprehensive agreements, and no one's talking about this. Nobody in the media are praising us. Nobody wants to stand up for Britain and British people. Everybody wants to talk about decline. Everybody wants to talk about how lazy British people are, how weak British businesses and industries are, how nobody wants to buy from Britain. Well, facts say something else. Facts show the exact opposite, and it matters. Now, the UK's developing countries trade scheme is also brilliant because they've got developing countries, and it's a major milestone, this trade scheme, in growing and free and fair trade with developing nations. It applies to 65 countries, offering low tariffs and simple rules of origin requirements for exporting to the UK, and obviously vice versa. Now, this scheme helps countries to diversify their exports and grow their economies, while British households and businesses benefit from lower prices and more choice. And by the way, this is the only and best way you can help those developing countries or undeveloped countries to come up. Instead of using taxpayer money to throw money in the name of foreign aid and international aid and all that nonsense, the freebies that we've been sending to dictators, and they misuse the money for their own interests, the best way to bring up the world to create the level playing field is not this liberal globalization nonsense that they've been doing. The globalists don't really care about that, because what they do is they want, for example, open borders, not equally. What they want is basically you're going to have people from countries that are not really fully developed. They will move to the UK or to Canada or the US, and not only it will drain the brain from those countries that could actually help themselves, but it's also destroying our culture. If you want to help those countries to come up, you have to create a situation where they become prosperous, like Rwanda, so people don't move from those countries to come here. Actually, what you want is create such a prosperous nation that people from Britain would move there. Remember the early days of Dubai, for example, or Singapore or Hong Kong? We had Americans and Brits actually moving to go there to work. You want that rather than a one-way system when it comes to migration. Now, number 4, the benefits to businesses and to consumers in the United Kingdom. British businesses across the country are selling to and buying from countries right around the world. Where there are free trade agreements in place, they are able to benefit from lower or zero tariffs, and in some cases, to benefit from no quotas being applied. Now, one of the perfect examples is CPTPP, especially since the obviously creation of CPTPP, and back in 2018 when the idea came up, and it was mostly dominated by big governments and corporations. Since then, thanks to Liz Truss and Kemi Badenoch, their focus has been taking it away from big money and basic big business and big governments to help smaller businesses, to not really have big lobbies infiltrating and doing things that are just good for big businesses and corporations. Now it's going to help smaller businesses in the UK and our industries to be able to sell to the world. That's how you do business. This is the only good thing about this government, and it's basically been led by people who are not really wet socialists, because the rest of the cabinet are not really good. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.